Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Warships replay. This one's a nice slow-paced game, so I'm going to take the opportunity to discuss some things about the game while I'm on the way towards the enemy. Now this is the ocean map. This is completely open ocean. There's no islands, there's no weather conditions that obscure the enemy, nothing. It's just open water. A lot of people hate this map. I think it's one of the most maligned maps in the game, but I actually really enjoy it. I think the reason most people don't like it is because they don't fully understand the spotting mechanics, which you have to understand to really perform well on this map. And this brings me to the first thing I want to actually mention is, a lot of the time in my World of Tanks videos, and in my World of Warships videos, I'll say things without checking them. I don't script my replays, I don't actually fact check any of this shit before I say it, I just record when I feel like it and riff off what I'm seeing on the screen. So basically what this results in is me not always being right, and usually Desor will tell me where I've fucked up, and there's been several recent examples of that. Now, I was actually discussing this with him earlier, and this brought up a point which I hadn't really considered before, which is that you don't actually need 100% accurate working knowledge of the game mechanics to be decent at the game. In fact, all you need is a close enough working knowledge, and that'll get you there. And that's, I think, a really interesting point. There's no reason to go overboard with trying to know every little detail, you just have to know enough. Anyway, this was one of my first matches after the game actually went to open beta, and you could probably tell by the sheer amount of premiums in the match. This is, of course, a high-tier premium match, so it's nothing but Atlantas, Atagos, and Warspites, and Sims, of course. As you would expect, this is basically what happened the first few days of World of Tanks. It was nothing but A32s, Panzer 54s, and M6A2 E1s. It's also what happened when the Type 59 first came out, just shitloads of them everywhere. And I think, and I'll explain why in this and future videos, I think the Atago is the Type 59 of the sea. So as you can see, this is a Atago class heavy cruiser. It is a very, very nice ship, one of my favourite looking World War II ships. There's just something very high speed, low drag about that superstructure. The hexagonal profile at the front of it reminds me of modern American guided missile destroyers. If we look at the ship itself, it's got the same gun layout and gun armament as the Mirko. 5 double turrets of 8-inch guns. 3 forward, 2 aft. The 3 forward turrets are arranged in 2 guns, one super firing over the other, firing across the forward arc, and then one swinging through the rear arc behind the second turret. This will become familiar to Izumo players, it will become familiar to Mirko players. The Mogami, on the other hand, doesn't have the second gun super elevated, or sorry, super firing, it has the third gun super firing over the second gun turret, I should say. So this thing has basically the gunnery of the Mirko, with about a 15.5 kilometer range, and the torpedoes in 4 quad tubes of the Mogami. This makes it a very good all-round ship, but what it has that neither the Mirko nor the Mogami have is a very wide angle of torpedo firing. Essentially, you can fire your torpedoes across about a 40-45 degree frontal angle, as well as, of course, your rear aspect, which you would be used to from any other Japanese cruiser. This makes the Atago extremely flexible, more so than either the Mirko or the Mogami, in my opinion, and it's a very solid ship. And of course you will be seeing lots of them if you play this early on in the game's release. Now, you did miss some interesting chat there. Our carrier actually said that his name used to be Mike Hunts or something, or Mike Hunt Jr., Mike Hunt something. And of course that's a classic, Michael Hunt, Mike Hunt, ah ha ha. But I'm surprised Wargaming renamed him for that, when there's so many Hitlers and Rommels and all sorts of obscenities I won't utter, that have never had their names changed, and usually I would think that that would get away from their notice, but such is life. I'm engaging Mr. John Jellicoe here at long range with HE. I managed to set him on fire. As I said in my previous video, the Warspite is very, very prone to getting sledged with HE because of its giant superstructure. And the 8-inch guns of the Atago are very good at setting fires, although the 6-inch 15 guns set up on the Mogami is probably better overall for running fires because it just fires so goddamn quickly. Now, you may have a look at the consumables I've got down there and wonder what the T key activates. That is Hydroacoustic Search. It's a special ability that only cruisers get. They can pick between that and the improved anti-aircraft capability. And essentially what that does, I think it's from tier 6 up you can use the anti-aircraft, and I'm not sure what tier Hydroacoustic unlocks at. But what it does is it will uncloak destroyers in smoke screens within a certain range and also spot torpedoes. So if we have a look at it down here, it's active for 40 seconds, it takes 3 minutes to come back up, and it doesn't actually say the range there, but I think it's 4 kilometers or something. It's not a very big range, so it's really only useful in proximity. Now, the reason I have that consumable mounted is because I hadn't really decided on a final consumable layout here, and so I was just mounting whatever. You can see I'm not using the gold consumables either. I actually found out that I can run gold consumables on my premiums and still make an enormous profit, so that's what I've been doing. And just quickly to cut back to what's actually happening in the game, you can see me harassing this enemy Atago with AP. Once I found my range with HE, I switched to AP. When dealing with cruisers, unless they're giving you an angle like he's doing now, AP is the correct choice. I know he's going to turn to present his other side, so I'm quite confident firing anyway. I know he's not going to be giving me a bad angle by the time he finishes that turn. A lot of people have got carried away with the HE meta, and they will fire HE at other cruisers. Wrong, bad, don't do it. Cruisers will routinely penetrate each other with AP at basically any range, meaning that you can citadel the fuck out of an enemy cruiser while he's still just barely tickling you with HE, and this is what I've been doing to other Atagos. Most of them do not realise that they should be shooting AP at me. Of course, HE does tend to be more effective against battleships, though you may notice I am using AP against the Warspites in this match. The reason for that is because they're right on the edge of my range, which means plunging fire, and plunging fire on the Warspite from 8-inch guns is actually quite effective. It won't set any fires, you probably won't citadel them, but you may well crit their turrets out of action, and it also does quite a lot of damage via spalling. So it is a viable option. Obviously at closer range the AP isn't going to do shit to a Warspite because of its belt armor. Now, for a moment, talk about the different roles of ships, because I wanted to bring this up while I have time to do it. I might not in a more active match. So basically, a lot of people have been kind of carrying across the different classes of World of Tanks into World of Warships. Battleships are heavies, cruisers are mediums, destroyers are lights, and carriers are artillery. This doesn't really work, even though it's at the point where carriers are actually called Sky Cancer, much like artillery in World of Tanks. They're totally different. Carriers can actually spot for themselves. They can defend themselves much more effectively than arty. I mean, you could imagine a 53-55 being able to spot an enemy on the opposite side of the map without actually putting himself at risk. Yeah, it's not really comparable. Similarly, while cruisers and mediums do have some overlap of roles, obviously they're both good for scouting. Light tanks are your more dedicated scouts in World of Tanks, whereas cruisers are dedicated scouts in World of Warships. Their aircraft stay in the air for much longer than those of battleships. You can see my little A6M2 float plane buzzing around for about 5 minutes. And of course, being a zero float plane, it will shoot down enemy aircraft that come too close to me. So you do get some handy tools in the form of aircraft, and I'm kind of curious to see what they do in the future with potentially adding the Tournai class heavy cruiser, which was basically all 4 turrets are mounted forwards with 8-inch guns, and then the rear deck was dedicated to aircraft handling. Carry up to 7 aircraft, but more usually carried 4 or 5. So really your cruisers are your eyes. Destroyers can obviously spot things because they can conceal themselves so well they don't become spotted until they're very close to the enemy, but it's not an ideal role for them. Cruisers are just much better all round at it. Cruisers are kind of like the Swiss Army knife of World of Warships, especially the Japanese cruisers with their torpedoes. They can do basically everything. They can spot the enemy, they can kill the enemy, and of course with torpedoes they can handle bigger targets too. The Atlanta and the Atago, the 2 high-tier premium cruisers currently for sale, may seem similar on paper. They both got torpedoes, they're both premium cruisers. They're not the same tier, but they're close. But they're very different. The Atlanta is in fact just an overgrown destroyer. It plays like an overgrown destroyer. It's quick, it turns fairly well, it has a shit ton of very fast rotating turrets with twin 5-inch guns in each. It can put down a ridiculous volley of 5-inch fire, but of course it won't hurt anything with armor unless it's shooting HE. It's very good at chasing down and murdering destroyers. It's also quite good at providing long-range harassing fire with HE from its guns. The Atago, on the other hand, is a dedicated ship killer and scout. The Atlanta doesn't scout quite so well, lacks the aircraft handling facilities, and its torpedoes are very short range. The Atago, meanwhile, much better for the role. It's much better balanced. It does basically everything you'd ask it to. Like I said, it's the Type 59 of World of Warships. It doesn't have any glaring weaknesses. It's very versatile. It does everything you really need it to. And so, for that reason, I think it's my favourite ship at the moment.
Ready for takeoff.
And if you buy only one premium, I would recommend this as it. It's a fantastic ship, and also very pretty. The enemy are down to a single destroyer, and there is an unholy volume of fire coming down on his head. This match will soon be over.